If you're preparing for your PMP exam and want to learn more about what the exam process looks like, today I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to know about the exam process, from what to bring on exam day to some of my top study tips. If you're new here, I'm Melissa Kahn Blackmore, Global Project Management Leader, Career Strategist, and PMP Trainer. Today we're going to go through my top study tips, the question formats that you'll see on the exam, some general tips for exam day, in-person testing details, remote testing details, time management on the exam, and some exam day tips. So some of my top study tips are to create a study plan and schedule. Think of it as a project plan for your study journey. If you're one of my students, this is done for you in the Journey to PMP Project Tracker in Thinkific. You also want to make sure that you are defining the scope of what you're studying. This means figuring out what materials you're going to use to study, if you're doing any coaching calls or any group study sessions, when to ask questions, what study notes that you'll use to study. You'll also want to make sure you're defining your deliverables. Do you need to finish a course and then study questions? What are you specifically going to do to study, and what are those deliverables? Typically, I recommend studying all of the core concepts, making index cards, creating a study guide if you don't have one provided to you in the course you're taking, and then using a majority of your time taking practice questions, because that's how you're going to really learn and understand what you'll be asked on the exam. You'll also want to create a very specific study schedule. Are you going to be able to dedicate an hour a day? Are you going to be able to dedicate 2 hours a week? Are you going to cram it all into 2 weeks? Think about how you want to distribute your time and plan ahead. You also want to use techniques like the Pomodoro method or the 5-second rule to really mitigate some of those procrastinating tendencies, or you can work with me to tweak your productivity. You also want to make sure you understand your study plan is going to look a lot different from other people that are studying for the exam, because everyone has a very unique study style and everyone has unique barriers. On exam day, you want to plan for the unexpected. So make sure you're getting to your testing center 30 to 45 minutes early. If you're super anxious like I am, an hour early. If you're taking it at home, make sure you have a backup internet connection, or would strongly recommend a wired connection. Make sure that you have time to dedicate to studying. If this means taking a couple days off of work, taking some PTO to study as you get closer to your exam date, make sure you plan for that. Take lots of practice questions. I cannot emphasize this enough. The more practice questions you take, the more confident you're going to feel when you're sitting for your exam. Again, curating your study style. Do you have a daily or weekly study routine? Are you reading your study guide or your study notes? Are you maybe teaching yourself with a whiteboard? Are you listening to videos on audio while you do an exercise or while you multitask? Are you using index cards on a lunch break? What specifically works for you? Curate your study style against that method that is really tried and true for yourself and aligns with your learning style. The other really important tip is to understand the material, don't just memorize it. There are certain concepts that you may have to memorize definitions to, but at the end of the day, you really want to apply these things to actual examples and try to understand and comprehend the material from a more realistic perspective, since the exam is testing you on practical application as opposed to definitions. Ask questions and study with other people. One of the best ways to learn is collaborate with other people who are also on the same study journey. We are all social creatures, and so having that sounding board to kind of bounce ideas back and forth and ask questions and have kind of a community is going to help you do this process in a lot easier, less painless way, less isolated way as well. The other tip that I love is to visualize reaching your goal and remember your why. What is your why? Why do you want to get a PMP certification? Is it going to give you more financial freedom? Is it going to open you up to your dream job? Is it going to help bring you closer to your purpose? What is your why? And making sure that you come back to that on a regular basis. And then the last one is schedule your exam date as soon as you're ready to fully commit to studying. I've seen people schedule their exam dates too soon, and I've seen people who wait too long to schedule their exam date and end up procrastinating and never getting to scheduling the exam. So make sure you are constantly thinking about when you're going to schedule your exam and just do it. Just pick a date and schedule the exam if you have dived into studying and you have your study plan ready and you know exactly how you're going to tackle up to exam day. Next thing that I want to go over with you are the exam question formats. So what are the questions on the exam going to look like? The first biggest category is going to be the multiple choice questions. So these are traditional multiple choice questions with 4 potential answers and 1 correct answer. The next set of questions that you'll get is 5 multiple choice questions that are multi-answer. So this means that you have 5 possible choices and several possible answers. I may ask you a question like, pick 3 of the top servant leadership characteristics. And of those 5 potential choices, 3 of them are going to be correct and 2 of them are going to be wrong. So these are multi-answer, 5 choices with several possible answers. The next type of question format you'll see are drag and drop questions. Drag and drop questions are going to ask you to drag the information to the related choices. So you can see in this example below, it's asking you to drag the product information on the left to where it would be stored in the correct documents on the right. So you would see here, this is the information, this is the documentation it belongs into, and you would want to drag and drop these answers into the right category. These are some more general exam day tips. If you want this, it's in my PMP Playbook, which has a lot of really juicy information. That's completely free. I'll drop the link down below if you wanted to download it and read through it. Let's talk in-person testing details. So I definitely recommend testing in person. It's going to be the most safest bet for not getting flagged for cheating, for having a stable internet connection, and for just having a controlled environment that there won't be any distractions or anything happening that is going to potentially invalidate your exam, which is what we really want to avoid. So in order to be admitted into the testing center, you need a valid ID that is not expired, and it's a form of government-issued identification. You want to make sure your ID meets the requirements. This could be like a passport or driver's license. Make sure that you bring a second identification document if you don't have an ID. There is a PMI certification exam handbook that I really recommend going through. It has a little bit more information about the accepted ID types, and I'll also drop the link to that down below. If possible, visit the testing center beforehand or try to come in early so you aren't rushing to find the building or to find parking. If the exam center is really far away from you, maybe you come an hour early to allow yourself enough time to get situated, find a parking spot, and feel comfortable in the environment. Make sure you read the confirmation email they send you, and also make sure you print out a copy of your registration email and bring it with you to the testing center. This information below is taken directly from PMI's certification exam handbook, and again, I'll put the link for that down below. But basically, they want you to arrive half hour early before your scheduled appointment. I, again, would recommend getting there a little bit earlier, but make sure you are in the testing center talking to someone half an hour before your scheduled appointment, checking in. So you have to sign in, you're going to give them your ID, and you're going to provide your PMI eligibility ID, which is on that email confirmation that you should have printed out. You're going to be asked to have your photo taken and provide a signature during the check-in process. You're also going to be asked to provide the confirmation number that you received when scheduling the appointment. Again, this should be on the printout that you have. Items that are prohibited from your testing area are down here. So food, coats, calculators, your cell phone, watches, eye drops, beverages, sweaters, your eyeglass cases, tape recorders, obviously, your wallet, any other personal items, book bags, luggage, pagers, dictionaries, medication. You cannot bring these things into your testing area. But you can bring them into the testing center and they're going to give you a locker to put those things in. I really would recommend just bringing a water, maybe a small snack that you can eat on your 10-minute breaks. And then if you have medication you need, because the long time period that you're testing for, about 4 hours, you can bring that. You can also bring your cell phone in. And again, they'll give you a locker to store your personal items in. Once you've completed the check-in process, the testing administrator will give you either a booklet or scratch paper and 2 pencils or 2 erasable markers and like a marker board and an eraser. So you will have like scrap paper that you can use. I know I used all my scrap paper up because I'm very visual and I was drawing things out and I was like writing down some of the things that I remembered, like the power influence diagram, like the CPI formulas. You will be able to access the calculator that is on your computer. So if it is a computer-based test and you can use the calculator on your computer. However, if you want a handheld calculator, I did request a handheld calculator. It's just easier for me to use. I was just more familiar with a handheld calculator as opposed to a calculator on the computer. So you can do that either or, but you will have a calculator to use in case you need it. Remote testing details. So I'm going to just go ahead and say it. I strongly recommend against testing at home remotely unless you have a medical condition that prevents you from going into the testing center or you have really crippling anxiety and you just cannot go into a testing center. You don't want to. That's totally understandable. Just know that you are taking a bit of a risk because there are a lot of little caveats that could increase your risk of getting flagged for cheating or just having your exam invalidated. I've heard horror stories from people where they were waiting in the queue for 8 hours because when you take your exam online, you are entering a queue because a proctor has to get assigned to you to watch you through your laptop, through your computer to see what you're doing on the exam. And sometimes that can take a long time. Sometimes the proctor can think you're cheating because you looked, you looked up or you looked away or you looked down. So just something to remember. It is a little bit of a risk to test remotely. But if you are taking the exam online at home, some of the tips that you want to follow are these. So number 1, the day of the exam, I would say hours before the exam, maybe as soon as you wake up that day, get your computer ready. Is your internet connection stable? Do a network speed test. Does your system have updates that need to happen? I know for me, I always have updates that I'm forgetting to run on my laptop. So make sure that you are good to go. Your computer's not going to glitch out. I would restart my computer, close all tabs, and make sure you have a wired internet connection so you don't risk losing your Wi-Fi halfway through and having your exam invalidated. The second thing is don't leave anything within arm's reach. So here's what can happen. Let's say I get thirsty and I reach for my water while I'm testing. Your exam can get invalidated or flagged for cheating because they don't know if you have something written on your water bottle. They don't know if you reached for a cheat sheet. And so the proctor is going to be very strict about your eye movement and your movements around what you're doing around you in your space. So make sure you clear everything out and you don't have any distractions or things that you can accidentally grab because you may get flagged for cheating. Again, prepare your space. Make sure you are alone with no distractions or anyone else in the room. I would strongly recommend a closed door and just making sure that you let everybody in your house know, hey, I'm taking this exam. Please don't bother me. You're also going to want to perform a system test with Pearson on View. They're going to give you instructions for doing this. We'll make sure your system is ready. There is a known issue right now with MacBooks. There have been multiple people that I've heard from that have said they weren't able to run the technology on their laptop. They had to repay to take the exam. So just a note. Goes without saying, stay within the proctor or camera's view range. If you go like this out of the picture, you can get invalidated or flagged for cheating. So you want to make sure your proctor can see you all times. Again, don't look around. They're watching your eyes, and if it moves from the laptop, they can flag you for cheating and invalidate your exam. Also, make sure you just skim the handbook for more details because PMI does give you some pretty extensive details on remote testing. Let's talk time management during your exam. This is an important one, and this is something that maybe you're not thinking about as you're taking practice exams, as you're studying for your exam, but time management during your exam is going to be super, super key to make sure you get through all of the questions and you're using your time efficiently. So you have 230 minutes total to take your exam. That's 3 hours, 50 minutes. You have 180 questions that you are being given. 5 of those are beta questions, so 5 of those are not going to count. Beta questions are just questions that PMI is testing out to see how people do and decide if they want to incorporate them on future exams. So with this total time calculation, this means that you have approximately 75 seconds or 1 minute, 22 seconds per question. So I would really advise not spending this whole 75 seconds on your questions. In general, avoid spending too much time on any one question. If you're stuck, choose an answer, flag it for later for review, and move on. But do not move on without choosing an answer, because what may happen is you may run out of time at the end to go back and review the questions that you flagged. And picking an answer gives you a 1 in 4 chance of getting that answer correct. So it's better to pick an answer, even if you're not 100% sure about it, and move on, as opposed to leaving it blank and moving on. The exam structure is going to look a little bit like this. You're going to have a timer. It's going to start at 230 minutes, and it's going to count its way down. Your exam is divided into 3 sections, which we'll go over. These are 60 questions per section. You can mark questions for review in each set, and you can only review marked questions within your current section. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Once you submit a section, again, you cannot go back to any questions in that section, including the questions. So let's talk a little bit about specifically what this is going to look like. So you're going to have your screen, exam on the screen. You're going to have your timer. The timer is going to start at 230 minutes, and then it's going to start clicking down. Here's your time allocation strategy. You want to use your first 75 minutes for questions 1 through 60. So in this section, you want to aim to complete those 60 questions in 75 minutes. Do not move on without choosing an answer for a flagged question. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is super important. Then, after you're done with those 60 questions, submit this section and then go for your 10-minute break. The screen is going to ask you if you want to submit and then ask if you want to take a break. So click yes, you want to submit. When you're ready to submit, click yes, I want to take my 10-minute break, go for a walk, grab some water, use the restroom. Then when you get back from your 10-minute break, you're going to have your second 75-minute section of questions. So these are questions 61 through 120. Continue working at a steady pace. Keep an eye on the timer. Do not move on without choosing an answer for flagged questions. Review your flagged questions and then submit. And then you get another 10-minute break. You can take this 10-minute break. You can skip this 10-minute break. If you skip your first 10-minute break, I would definitely recommend taking this second 10-minute break because you're going to get tired, especially when you hit the last third. It's going to be a lot. I mean, you've got a lot of questions to go through. I took one of my breaks. I took the second break. I went and used the restroom, kind of cleared my head a little bit, got like my legs moving. And then I went back. And I do think that kind of like ability to get up, go use the restroom, take a couple deep breaths, reset myself really helped me for the last third of questions. So then when we enter our last third of questions, this is our last 75-minute, about 80-minute block, and you're going to get questions 121 to 180. Again, you cannot go back to questions 61 through 120 or 1 through 60. Once you've submitted each of these sections, you are only able to access that specific section. So remember that. This is going to be just you focusing on completing your remaining questions and using any extra time to review your flagged questions from this section of 121 to 180. When you finish, the exam screen is going to say, do you want to submit? Click submit. After submitting the exam, you will receive your preliminary results. So it'll say you've preliminary passed or you've preliminary failed. And your overall score, below target, above target, at target, whatever it was you scored on each area, people, process, and business environment. Now I want to go through with you some more exam day tips. First and foremost, stay calm and focused. Avoid getting overwhelmed or stressed. Try to take deep breaths, slow and controlled, in through your nose, out through your mouth. This is really going to help you get rid of the jitters, get rid of the anxiety, and try to maintain a positive mindset. A lot of people, while they're taking the exam, they feel like they are doing a really, really bad job and then they pass. So just stay positive. I know when I was taking the exam, I thought 100% I failed. And then I saw that preliminary pass on the screen and I was confused because I didn't think I had passed, but I did. So stay calm, stay focused, stay positive. The second piece of advice I have for you, and I said this before and I'll say it again, flag difficult questions. If you encounter a difficult question, don't waste too much time on it. Choose an answer, flag it for review, come back to it later. Give yourself more time for the questions that you can answer quicker, because then you can get through more of those questions that you know you'll get right. The third tip, take your breaks. Take at least one of the 10-minute breaks, if not both of them, between sections to reset. Those are all of my tips for exam day. If there are any questions you have or anything else you want to see, let me know in the comments down below.